The hallway echoed with laughter that wasn't friendly. It wasn't joyful. It wasn't kind. It was sharp and mocking, bouncing off the gray lockers like glass shattering at her feet. Amara Walker kept her eyes forward, clutching the worn strap of her backpack as she walked through the corridor of Westdale High. She had only been at the school for 3 weeks, but already, it felt like 3 years of walking barefoot across broken pride. Her shoulders hunched as if bracing for impact, but that day, the storm came from behind. "Hey!" A voice rang out, Chad. Tall, loud, obnoxious, the kind of guy who made people laugh by tearing others down. "You dropped your collar, mutt." The laughter followed, and Amara turned slightly, confused. Before she could understand, she felt it, fingers gripping the collar of her uniform shirt, yanking her backwards like she was some sort of stray. The fabric pulled tight around her neck, and she stumbled, choking on surprise and humiliation. "Thought dogs like you needed to be reminded of their place," sneered Kara, the queen of venom, her icy blonde hair perfect even as she spat her cruelty. Chad and his pack of followers howled with laughter. A phone was already out, recording. Of course it was. Amara yanked free, her eyes burning. But she didn't cry. No. She straightened her back, even though her breath was still stuck in her throat. She looked them dead in the eye, every one of them. But she said nothing. Just walked away. The silence was louder than any scream. Behind her, the group snickered again, but it was unsure now, unsteady. They didn't know what she was thinking, and people like that hated not being in control. She made it to the girls' bathroom and locked herself in a stall, letting out the breath she had been holding. Her hands shook, her chest tightened, but the tears, they didn't come. Not yet, not anymore. 3 schools in 2 years. Every time her mother found a better job, they moved. This time, it was because her mom landed a spot at a prestigious hospital. A fresh start, her mom had called it. But for Amara, every fresh start came with fresh wounds. She had learned to expect it. Black girl, scholarship student, top of her class, all of it put a target on her back. But today was different. Today, they crossed a line. Today, they touched her. Grabbed her collar like she was nothing. That night, Amara sat on the floor of her bedroom, sketchpad open but untouched. She didn't want revenge. She wanted dignity. She wanted justice. And she wanted to be seen. Not as a victim. Not as the black girl. Not as the scholarship pity case. But as Amara Walker. The one who knew 5 coding languages, played piano like magic, and could paint entire worlds. The next morning, she walked into school with her head high, but not because she had forgotten what happened. No, because she was ready. Ready to take every piece of pain they handed her, and turn it into power. But they didn't stop. Another day. Another insult, another shove, until one day, she walked into Mr. Lawson's class, and he handed back their midterm projects. "Best work I've seen in 5 years, he said, holding up a model of an eco-sustainable city that looked like it belonged on a NASA poster. "Amara, you outdid yourself." Silence. Then, a snort. "Chad, guess her kind really can build cities. Made of cardboard and lies." Mr. Lawson's smile faltered. He said nothing. Amara stood up slowly. "Say that again," she said, voice calm. Chad leaned back. Didn't stutter. But this time, she didn't walk away. She walked up to the whiteboard, picked up a marker, and without asking, began writing. Code, equations, physics principles, every theory she used in her project. Her hand moved like fire, and when she stopped, the board was full. Not scribbles. Genius. She turned to Chad. "Can you read that? Or should I slow it down for you?" The room was silent. Dead silent. Even Kara looked uncertain. "See, I don't need to grab your collar to prove a point," Amara said. "Because I don't need to humiliate someone to feel big. But I'll tell you this, every time you laugh at me, you're just giving me more fuel. And I'm building rockets. You're building nothing." That video went viral. Not the one where they grabbed her. That one never made it past Kara's phone. But this moment of quiet rage and brilliance. Someone had filmed it. And people saw it. Teachers, parents, even the principal. But the fallout didn't stop there. Because the next day, Amara was called to the principal's office. Not Chad. Not Kara. Amara. "You disrupted class," Principal Edwards said, folding her hands. "Even if your point was valid." Amara stared at her. "So, Silence is respect. But humiliation is tolerated. I didn't say that. But you didn't punish it either. The principal hesitated. Look, I understand things can be hard. Amara stood up. You don't. But you will. That night, Amara did something she had never done before. She posted the video herself. With context. She told her story. Not with anger. With facts. With calm. With clarity. She spoke of being judged, mocked, touched, and silenced. And she asked one thing. Have you ever had your collar grabbed? Literally or figuratively? Then you know. Share this if you believe we can be better. The video exploded. Comments poured in. From girls who had been bullied. From boys who were mocked for not fitting in. From teachers who had stayed quiet and felt ashamed. Even from strangers who just listened. The next morning, the entire school was buzzing. Chad looked pale. Kara didn't meet anyone's eyes. And Mr. Lawson, he walked up to her and said quietly, I should have said something. I'm sorry. Amara nodded. Then say it now. Loudly. He did. That day, the school held an open assembly. They showed the video. And for once, the voices that mattered weren't the loudest, they were the ones that had been silenced too long. Amara didn't cry that day. But she saw others cry. And that was something. Because change doesn't start with shouting. It starts with someone refusing to stay quiet. And she had just begun. They didn't look at her the same after that day. Chad, Kara, the entire clique that used to own the hallways with swagger and cruelty, they weren't laughing anymore. And Amara, she walked with the kind of calm that came from surviving fire. But this wasn't the end of the story. This wasn't where the pain was suddenly erased. It was just where the masks started to slip, and deeper truths started to rise. The viral video didn't just make waves inside the school. Local news picked it up. Then national outlets. High school teen stands up after public humiliation, the headlines read. Interviews followed. Blogs posted her speech. University recruiters began reaching out. Strangers messaged her online, some pouring out their own stories, others thanking her for her voice. But with visibility came pressure, scrutiny, and hate. Anonymous messages slid into her DMs. She deleted most of them without reading, but they chipped away like acid rain. Her mother tried to help, tried to pull her from social media, tried to make her rest, but Amara refused. If I stop now, they win, she whispered late one night, eyes heavy but burning with purpose. Still, the weight pressed harder every day. At school, the staff were divided. Some praised her bravery. Others muttered about drama and disruption. One teacher even openly suggested she was polarizing the environment. But Amara knew the truth. The environment had always been poisoned. She just lit a torch. Then, a twist no one expected. The school board announced a full investigation, not just into the incident with the collar, but into bullying, discrimination, and staff negligence over the last 5 years. It turned out Amara wasn't the first to face this kind of treatment. She was just the first who made it impossible to ignore. And while some people rallied behind her, others began to target her more quietly. Chad was suspended for 3 weeks, but when he returned, his silence was thunderous. He didn't joke, didn't tease. He watched. And Kara, she was removed as cheer captain. Lost her college recommendation. Her father pulled strings to threaten legal action against the school for slandering his daughter. You've ruined our lives, Kara hissed at Amara one day by the lockers. Happy now. Amara turned. Calm. Focused. I didn't ruin anything. You just finally got to live in the world you made for me. That moment. That was when Kara cracked. Her eyes filled, not with rage, but something closer to fear. For the first time, Amara saw her not as a villain, but as a child pretending to be powerful. But that didn't make it over. It got worse. 3 weeks later, Amara's house was egged. Her mother's car was keyed. A note was shoved into their mailbox, with 6 words scrawled in ink. Silence was safer. Why speak now? The police called it teenage retaliation. The school board offered thoughts and prayers. But Amara, she doubled down. She started a blog, The Collared Truth, a space for stories from people who had been humiliated, mistreated, silenced. In a week, it had over 100,000 followers. Teachers from other states shared their failures. Students from other countries sent messages. Even celebrities reposted her video. One morning, a letter arrived. A scholarship offer. Full ride. MIT. Amara stared at the envelope, hands shaking. Her mom hugged her, crying quietly. You earned this, she whispered. They tried to shrink you. And you expanded. But the part that stung. She had no one to share it with at school. No real friends. No celebrations. Just whispers and stares. Until Maddie stepped forward. Maddie, who sat 2 rows behind her in English. Quiet. Red hair. Nobody really noticed her. One afternoon, she walked up to Amara and said softly, I saw what they did to you. I should have spoken up. Amara blinked. It's okay. No, Maddie said. It's not. And I'm not going to be quiet anymore. That small moment. It started something. Like a thread pulled loose. Others followed. Jeremy, a sophomore who was shoved into lockers for being gay. Priya, a junior mocked for her accent. A whole group of students who had been holding in their voices now began to speak. They joined the blog, created local events, formed what they called Amara became more than a girl who stood up. She became a symbol. But still, something inside her burned. Something unfinished. Because Chad and Kara never really apologized. Never owned it. Never showed regret. And while the world praised Amara, those two continued to live like shadows. Lurking. Avoiding. Waiting. Until the final assembly of the year. It was supposed to be a celebration. Awards. Yearbooks. Goodbye speeches. But the principal had an announcement. The school was launching a new diversity and dignity program, inspired by Amara's story. There were cheers. Then, the unexpected. Amara Walker, Principal Edwards said from the stage, please join us up here. Amara walked forward slowly. She hadn't been told. Her heart raced. We want to recognize your courage, not just in facing injustice but in transforming pain into power. The applause was deafening. But just as she reached the microphone, someone shouted. From the crowd, she's not a hero. She's just angry. It was Chad. The auditorium went still. He stood up, arms crossed. We're acting like she changed the world. But all she did was play victim loud enough for cameras. Gasps rippled. A teacher moved toward him, but Amara raised her hand. It's okay, she said into the mic. Let him speak. Chad paused, thrown off. Amara looked at him, full of fire and peace all at once. You're right about one thing, Chad. I am angry. I'm angry that kids like you were allowed to joke while kids like me had to survive. I'm angry that for years, silence was called strength, and cruelty was passed off as humor. But you know what I'm not. She stepped forward. I'm not afraid of your words anymore. Silence. She continued. And you're not angry at me. You're angry that the world stopped laughing with you and started listening to me. You're angry that your power came from people being too afraid to speak, and now they're speaking. Then she turned to the crowd. We've all been grabbed by the collar, some of us literally, some of us by judgment, stereotypes, silence. But I say no more. Her voice cracked but didn't break. No more collars, no more shrinking, and no more regret, except for the people who thought we'd stay quiet. The room erupted. Chad sat down, jaw clenched. Kara looked away. But the regret, it was written across their faces now. Not because they were being punished. But because they were irrelevant. Powerless. Forgotten. Amara didn't need revenge. She had something stronger. She had truth. Later that night, Kara messaged her. Just one line. Amara stared at it. Didn't respond. Not out of cruelty. But because she had already moved forward. She wasn't stuck in the past anymore. Her future was calling. Weeks passed. Summer arrived. Westdale High's hallways, once filled with mocking whispers and cold laughter, were now quiet, not from fear, but from reflection. Students came and went. Teachers began retraining. Rules were rewritten. And in the center of it all was Amara Walker, the girl who refused to shrink. But after everything, the virality, the speeches, the apologies that came too late, Amara felt something strange. Emptiness. Not sadness. Not anger. Just a quiet ache. Because when the noise faded, what remained was the reality that she had carried too much for too long. That she had become a symbol, a warrior, an icon, but she hadn't had time to just be Amara. Not the fighter. Not the survivor. Just the girl who loved sketching galaxies and playing piano at midnight. She started spending more time alone, on the roof of her apartment building, in libraries, by the lake. Not because she was hiding, but because she was rediscovering. One afternoon, she opened her old sketchbook. It had been months since she touched it. The pages held half-drawn dreams and silent poems from the days before Chad grabbed her collar. Before Kara sneered. Before the world made her choose between invisibility and battle. As she flipped the pages, she found a drawing she forgot. A girl with a broken collar, but wings bursting from her back. Underneath it, a single line she had written in shaky pencil. She smiled. Then cried. Real tears. Quiet ones. Not from pain, but release. That same night, she got a message from Maddie. Amara stared at the screen. She had spoken on stages before. Given interviews. Led school rallies. But this was different. This would be personal. She typed back. Friday came. The venue was small. Brick walls, fairy lights, folding chairs. Teens and college kids packed the space, snapping their fingers and clapping between performances. Poets spoke of heartbreak, of addiction, of mothers who left, and fathers who stayed too long. The air was thick with truth. When they called Amara's name, the room fell silent. She stepped up, no microphone, no fanfare. Just her voice. And she spoke. I was 13 the first time someone told me I talked, too educated for a black girl. 15 the first time someone said I must have cheated because I got the highest grade. 17 when someone grabbed my collar to make me feel like a dog. I've been quiet, I've been angry, I've been loud, and I've been tired, but I've never been small. Not even once. She paused. Their regret isn't my fuel. Their silence isn't my goal. My voice is not a response. It's a declaration. I am not here because of them. I'm here despite them. The crowd erupted, but Amara just bowed her head. She didn't need their cheers anymore. The next day, she got a call from MIT. Not about admissions. She had already been accepted. This was about a speaking invitation. We'd like you to open our New Voices of Innovation summit in September, the woman said on the phone. You're exactly what the next generation needs to hear. Amara accepted. She sat in silence afterward, trying to breathe it all in. It wasn't just that she had made it. It was that she had made them face themselves. But the story still had one more turn. A week before graduation, Amara received a package. No name. Just her address and a handwritten label. Inside was a letter. From Kara. Greater than, I don't expect forgiveness. I don't think I even deserve your time. But I need to tell the truth. I wasn't cruel because I hated you. I was cruel because I hated myself. You made everything I wasn't feel exposed. Smart, resilient, proud. I wanted you to feel small so I wouldn't feel so broken. But I was wrong. And I am sorry. I've started therapy. I'm not asking for a clean slate. Just wanted you to know that the girl who grabbed your collar doesn't exist anymore. Not really. Beneath the letter was a tiny box. Inside, the torn collar from Amara's uniform, stitched together, framed, with a tag that read. Amara clutched it to her chest. Not because she forgave everything, but because she saw something rarer than revenge. Remorse. Graduation day arrived. The